Good morning, happy Saturday. Heading to the first day of conferences. Today, whew, that is bright. About to head to the first day of conferences. Today is like seminars from 8 to 4:15, I believe, on a panel with Danny, Robert, and Crystal talking about bodybuilding around 10:45. So try to get footage of that and all the other talks as well.
Which is what Dr. Atkins did, this is what he did at HEAL. But within that context, we personalize things. I would have people who, because they don't tolerate dairy, have to change it. Or people that I suspect, because their systems may have too much yeast activity, and they're eating a lot of cheese. So they may be someone that I put on a fresh cheese, no aged cheese. None of the blue cheese or the brie or things like that, because it triggers their symptoms. So you have I have some people who hate cooked vegetables. So I would just give them an equal number of carbs from their cooked vegetables and salad. And they're happy with that. And if that's what works for them, then that's what you do. And that may not be, you could have the reverse. You could have people who hate salad, and so I'll give them a little bit more of the cooked vegetables. So there are ways of individualizing it to make it easier and more comfortable for you to do it. Don't compare yourself to others, and don't compare yourself losing weight to the way you used to lose weight. This is a conversation, if I had $1 for every time I had it. I was talking to a perimenopausal woman who kept saying, but when I was 25, well, if you did it right, when you were 25, you wouldn't be sitting here. So, you've had babies, your body changes, that has to be fit into the picture. Just do it, and you'll eventually get to where you need to be. It's just not going to be as fast as it used to be. And don't compare, ladies. If your male partner or your husband is doing this, and they do it with you and cheat 50% of the time, and they lose twice as much weight than you do, that's normal.
Savage and his lovely brand new wife, who is the Lady Savage now. She used to have the hardest Instagram to remember. I could never remember crystal.love / / points. I was like, I don't know where it is, Crystal. And then a newcomer that you may not know about, her name Lauren Berryhill. Who knows Keto Coach Lauren? Awesome. Well, she's here with us as well. All of these guys are big time into muscle building, and speaking of muscle building, we just walked in the door. So I'm going to take it away, you guys. Bodybuilding panel. Give them a hand.
All right, my name's Danny Vega. I like to wear flashy clothes, and I rarely ever wear sleeves. I wanted to give you guys a little introduction. So why don't you guys let them know a little bit about yourselves. They probably know you, but.
All right. I'm Keto Coach Lauren Berryhill. Really have to with this. All right. I am a wife, a mom of a 3.5-year-old. About 3.5 years ago, whenever I had my son, I reached my heaviest weight. Prior to that, I had gained a ton before my pregnancy, but during my pregnancy, I was pre-diabetic, I had preeclampsia, and ended up gaining 50 pounds. Over the course of the last 3.5 years, I have lost over 100 pounds, and the majority of it was with keto. And I fell in love with helping other people not only change their lives with keto, but also the fitness aspect of it. So I became a personal trainer, certified in nutrition, and that's kind of just been my presence in the space, just kind of helping people get healthy. using keto and changing their body image. I struggle with body dysmorphia and binge eating, and so I'm also really good at helping people heal from their eating disorders as well. So that's kind of the background on me. Okay, so I'm not really the best about like just talking about myself, but I'm gonna go for it. So I'm Crystal Sykes now, was Crystal Love. I have been keto for 3.5 years. I've been lifting, I started lifting 3 months after I started keto. So people who say you cannot build muscle on keto are big fat liars.
There you go.
I actually started keto and weightlifting to help with my gut issues, gastroparesis, low transit bowel, all that kind of stuff. I actually talked about that a little bit on my speech last year on this cruise. So with doing all of that, I started doing the weightlifting, getting excited about it with Robert, who competes in bodybuilding. I decided to go ahead and do a show myself. So last year in April, I did my first figure bodybuilding competition, and I won, which is awesome. Thank you. Which is just really cool because it's cool to be another face to saying you can build muscle on keto, you can make it sustainable on keto, and that you can do a cut like that with high fat, no carbs. So that's kind of my story. I am a keto coach. Yeah, and that's just me. I do it because I love it.
And I'm Robert Sykes, Keto Savage. I've been doing keto for 5 years now, I believe, and I've been bodybuilding for about 10. And I don't know, I love it. I've struggled with several different types of eating disorders when I was, pre-keto. You follow typical bodybuilding bro science diets. You do all kinds of macronutrient manipulations that aren't sustainable, aren't healthy, and aren't best for you long term. And I kind of fell into keto by accident. Learned a ton, didn't even know what I was doing, but noticed that I felt significantly better. So I kind of dove into that rabbit hole and have not looked back since. I've started coaching people and just sharing what I've learned over the years to help emphasize that there's a healthy alternative to what is preached out there currently.
All right, so I think the first place we can start is let's talk about training on a ketogenic diet because it's a whole different fuel source. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on different types of training on a ketogenic diet and how you would approach it. Glycolytic type stuff, high volume type stuff versus more frequency versus when I say intensity, I mean in terms of weight lifting heavy versus going to failure all the time and relying on the glycolytic system. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, Robert first. Really good.
So I think a lot of people overthink this. I think, obviously when you're eating carbohydrates, you've got glucose as your fuel source, glycolytic pathways. The prediction is that you're able to put forth more power and have more physically demanding, intense exercises. And that may be true initially, but one thing I've learned in being strict keto for 5 years now, like I haven't had a carb day at all in that 5-year period, is that your body adapts to what you put in it. So I've been able to get more and more adapted, more and more efficient using fat as my primary fuel source over the 5 years. Each year gets better, and I'm able to lift heavier, have a better recovery, lift harder, and I haven't been seeing any negative adverse response from not having the carbohydrates. So I don't feel like you have to drastically change. You just have to give your body enough time to truly adapt to what you've changed in your nutrition. Honestly, my training has stayed pretty much the same. I do recommend a little bit more frequency, but that's not necessarily because you're keto. It's just simply because you're a natural athlete. If you're taking enhanced supplements, you can get away with a lot more. But if you're a natural athlete, you're eating quality, wholesome foods. Train more frequently. Don't worry so much about overtraining. Overtraining is not easily done. People want to use that as a way to not train hard, but your body's capable of a lot more than you get credit for.
I'm going to put in my little piece, sorry. And as we're talking about training, and you're seeing like Robert and Danny and Lauren and all these people up here with muscle, and you're thinking, this is not my regular thing. Training means doing yoga. Training means going on a run. Training means whatever you do on a regular basis. I think the majority of us, we do weight training, we do resistance training. I know Danny does a lot more like rowing, maybe Robert does a lot more running, that kind of stuff. So it means everything. I don't want you guys to just think that we're only for one, but this is a bodybuilding panel. But I just want everyone to know that even like females, that's usually a lot of people that come to me. A lot of females are like, I'm too old for that. I'm too this for that. I'm too, and everybody can do it. It is possible. So I just want to throw that out there as we're talking about this. So sorry.
No, that's good. That's good because something that Peter Defty said a few years ago that I really stuck with me is the importance of having an aerobic base. So if you're someone who's trying to put on muscle, don't neglect the cardio. Especially the low intensity cardio, because that is just going to increase your work capacity and it's just going to give you more of a base, more of a capacity to do more work. So even if you're lifting, going for a walk every day, that's going to do wonders for you. Not only is it going to help you build that base, but it's also going to help you with just bringing you back into more of a parasympathetic state, which we're really huge on, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But I want to talk about a little bit the different fuel sources and the different things that we use to build muscle. So obviously protein being the first one, we got to talk about protein because protein's super important. What do you guys think about the importance of protein, and how do you guys approach protein with your diets and lifting and building muscle?
I believe that protein is individualized, just like ketogenic diets for everyone. I tend to personally thrive higher fat, so between 80-85% fat. I have done several experiments where I have done the 3-to-1, 2-to-1, protein being higher than fat. As a female with hormone issues and healing, I find that my body just typically responds to higher fat. I have been able to build quite a bit of muscle with my protein being anywhere from 60 to 100 grams. So I think it's totally individualized. I don't think that, you have the people who say always get your protein, always. And I think it's important for sure, if building muscle is a goal, to find your baseline, to find how much protein you need, but I don't really feel like you need an excess of it. And you don't need an excess to build more muscle, in a sense. You also have to worry about what your food quality is too, where you're getting that protein from. You're gonna get it from leaner or fattier cuts of meat, but while keeping your ratios in check, but also just not plant-based powders or protein powders. You want to eat real food, and I think that helps with building good and sustainable muscle. All right, I'm going to kind of second that. I used to kind of be afraid of increasing my protein. So actually recently I tried to increase my protein quite a lot, and I had someone actually helping lead me through that. And I increased it to a point that I was not comfortable. I actually meat was repulsive to me. And I think at that point you don't need to eat that much. You should enjoy the food that you're eating to a degree. But through doing that, I actually did learn that I do better at maybe a little bit higher than I was already at. But my fear of increasing the protein prevented me from doing that. Usually I'll stick between 75 to 80% fat ratio. That's my body. That's where I feel really, really good at. Again, everyone is going to be different. But when I did do my competition prep, I used protein as a variable to remove from my diet as I was cutting. So I got extremely low in my protein, lower than I would ever suggest any female go not doing a competition or not doing a drastic cut. And I still did fine. I still felt great. I had plenty of energy considering all of the cardio I was doing, all the lifting I was doing. I was actually 30 grams of total protein a day for several weeks, which again, I do not recommend you do that. That's not what I'm suggesting. But for a short period of time using that, I was totally fine. I felt totally fine. My energy was totally fine, and I did not lose any muscle. So,
and you won.
Yeah, and I won. So I think that protein is something that we can use as a variable to change your physique, to use to gain muscle, or as your body changes, as you're weightlifting, you might need to increase your protein because your lean mass is going to increase as well. So that's kind of where I stand on that.
So I'm going to give a little bit more background here. If I ask people what their goals are on their offer, I'm going to say something along the lines of I want to build muscle and lose body fat, which are both great goals. You can do both those simultaneously. However, they kind of compete for one another. So I always encourage clients to have a primary focus, whether that be to build muscle or lose body fat, because when you look at your energy equation, what you're putting in, what you're burning off, you're going to see better results if you double down and focus on one of those, reach that goal, then transition to the other. So when I'm in a building phase and I'm trying to build muscle, I'm in a caloric surplus, I have a much higher protein intake than I do when I'm trying to lose body fat and cut down for competition. Since I'm on a ketogenic diet, my primary fuel source is fat. When I'm cutting down for competition, I'll make protein my most manipulated variable. I'm changing my proteins, fats, carbs are staying low, but I'll titrate protein down simply because my primary goal is no longer to build muscle. It is to maintain as much muscle as possible as I'm losing body fat. And if you keep your fat ratio high, as I recommend when you're trying to cut calories, you're going to have higher ketones, you're going to be in a more muscle-sparing state, so you're not really going to have to risk losing any muscle that you've built over the years. So it depends what your goal is. I definitely recommend getting adequate protein. A lot of people are scared of protein. You shouldn't be scared of protein. It's necessary, it's good, it's tasty, so make sure you get enough protein.
Yeah, there's a lot of context here. If you are someone who has metabolic issues, if you're someone who's still, maybe your insulin's still high if you're testing it regularly, if your blood sugar's not completely in control, then adding protein is probably going to be a little bit worse for you. One of the things that at least for me, I'm always at about 35% protein. I do really well with like my fat between 65 and 70% most of the time. I found that I operate really well with that, especially because I'm eating a carnivore diet. I think when you eat carnivore, you're able to eat more protein. All those, whatever carbs were left, 20, 25 carbs, it makes a huge difference. You can add much more than 20, 25 grams of protein back from the carbs you took away. One of the things that's super important is, total energy, because protein it's just for building and rebuilding tissue. It's not a good fuel source. So when you talk about these people that are lowering their calories and they're keeping their protein very high and their fat starts to go lower than 55, 50%, you don't have any energy. You don't have usable energy, at least like carbohydrate or fat. So total calories, if we're talking about someone who is trying to put on muscle, is there a good guideline that you guys could give for total calories so that when they say, okay, my protein, I'm going to set it to 0.8 times my lean body mass. That's what my protein's going to be, or 1 times my lean body mass. Do you guys have like a minimum amount of calories? Like I like to say, let's say for someone who's trying to put on muscle, you got to try to eat between 14 and 15 times your body weight in calories. So if you set your protein to that number, then you can just refill the rest of it with fat. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
We'll go back to the guy. Yeah.
All right, so this is a near impossible question to answer accurately because everybody is so individualized. So I'm going to give just a little bit more foundation here. If you have to take into consideration, let's just back up a little bit farther. Do calories count? Do calories matter? Do macros matter? A lot of people like to go instinctive and intuitive with their eating, and I'm in full support of that. I think as far as diets and lifestyles around eating are concerned, you can be instinctive with keto much more efficiently and easily than can any other diet. You're not getting all the negative feedback from the carbs. You're just not having to deal with that noise. But calories absolutely do matter. You can't eat calories ad nauseum and expect there not to be any repercussion for that. So when it comes to like calculating your macros, your calories as it relates to building muscle or losing body fat, what I recommend people do is first you have to look at your history, your past. If you've been in a caloric deficit for years, your body's going to take time to recover from that caloric deficit. There's going to be repercussions to that action. So it's going to be different for males, it's going to be different for females, your metabolism, your hormones, your age, all that comes into the equation. So what I tend to recommend people do is track in order to establish a baseline. If you think of your body, your composition as like a scientific experiment, the more data points, the more metrics that you can have a measure on, and then be able to manipulate going forward, the more in tune you're going to be with your body. And then the stuff that the feedback you're getting is going to make sense. If you have no frame of reference, you can't make manipulations in order to improve upon that. So give yourself some time to track, figure out what your baseline caloric intake is, figure out what you're eating intuitively, and then figure out what your goals are and what you need to do as a result of that. Like, if you're trying to build muscle, titrate those calories up. If you're trying to lose body fat and you're at a healthy caloric intake already, then you can start titrating those down. But make very small, minute changes and give yourself enough, going back to the protein here, just to give you an idea, if you're at about 0.8 to 1.5 grams of protein per lean body mass, I think that's just a rough, good estimate. I mean, if you're doing that, you're not going to really risk losing muscle, especially if your ketones are solid and you're adapted. But don't overthink the whole calorie counting and macronutrient manipulation idea, because it is important. It needs to be brought to the forefront of your mind about what you're actually consuming, because you need to have an idea of what you can manipulate. So do that first and then kind of establish a baseline.
On that note, there are a lot of different kind of coaches. These ones here, they're awesome. Everyone that I know here is awesome, but there are some out there who are willing to just give you a number. They're willing to give you macros. They're willing to give, and for nothing. So of course you're like, I'm gonna go over here with Joe Blow because they're cheap and they're gonna give me my macros. That can be extremely dangerous because one, you don't know if they know anything, and two, if they say, okay, I want you to start eating 1,900 calories, and you're only eating 1,000, and you do a giant jump like that, that's the worst thing you can do for your body. So as Robert's saying, establish where you are right now. Get a baseline of how much you're eating currently on a regular day. Don't do anything different, just track what you're eating in that day. And then slowly make that transition to a higher calorie.
And I think it's also important to note that you're not going to stay at the same caloric intake. As you gain muscle, as you lose body fat, as you lose weight, you can't constantly stay at the same intake. It's going to have to be adjusted. And so that's why it's important to pay attention to your body, how you're feeling. If you're feeling sluggish, you may have too much protein. You may not have enough fat. You have to be really in tune with your body, and that is one reason why I say not everyone needs a coach, but the people who know, we know what to look for. We know how to ask you the right questions. Are you feeling sluggish? Are you, do you have a ton of energy? Are you losing? Are you gaining? We know how to manipulate things so that you can see results, but also know that things are not going to stay static. You have to constantly change things, and when you have a coach, it kind of takes the guesswork out of it for you. So a lot of people are pro and anti-macro or whatever, but we're just here to help, and it's okay to reach out for help. So.
Yep. Super huge. If you are working with a coach and this coach is just giving you stuff without asking you questions,
Fire.
Be wary of that. Right? Be wary of that. How does this person know what's going on? We have several things we track. Of course, the weight is the first one. So everybody's doing, a lot of us are doing daily weigh-ins, and we're doing weekly progress picks so we can track progress through different measures other than weight. I have people submit weekly progress picks because one person, if they're trying to lose weight and they come to me and they're like, I only lost 1 pound this week. Yeah, but look at your progress pics. They're noticeably leaner in your waist. So, yeah, and measurements and